All right. Now calling the matter of State of Georgia versus Benjamin Smith, charge and warrant numbers 2023 CW 55448, possession of a firearm by felon. And 2023 CW 55449, representing the state as Assistant District Attorney Freeman, representing the defendant. Is that going to be you, Attorney Lewis? Right?
It is, Judge.
All righty.
Attorney Lewis.
Attorney Lewis, are you ready? Your camera is off. Okay. All right. You're a witness, Attorney Freeman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Moriarty, would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
swear and affirm that the testimony about provide in the matter of State of Georgia versus Benjamin Smith will be the truth, nothing but the truth, to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
You can lower your hand. Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
I'm Officer London Moriarty. I'm employed with the City of Forest Park Police Department out of Clayton County, Georgia.
How long have you worked with the Forest Park Police Department?
2.5 years.
And sir, were you working with the Forest Park Police Department on October 23rd of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
On that particular day, did you respond to 5188 Warner Street in reference to a person shot?
Yes, ma'am.
What location is at 5188 Warner Street?
It is a residence.
When you arrived there, who did you speak to?
I initially spoke to the witness in this case, who is also a friend of the defendant, Mr. Smith.
Would that be Miss Kimberly Wyndon?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
And what did Miss Wyndon tell you what happened?
When I initially arrived on scene, Miss Wyndon informed me that her passenger, Mr. Smith, had shot himself in the ankle in response to her not taking him from the scene to an undisclosed location at that time.
Was Mr. Smith still on the scene when you got there?
He was.
Were you able to see an injury to Mr. Smith?
I was.
And if you could tell us what you saw.
When I arrived on scene, Miss Wyndon stated that Mr. Smith called him to ask him to remove him from the scene or to take him somewhere, but wouldn't specify where. When she arrived to pick him up, he didn't specify where to go or anything like that. In response to her asking more questions as to where he wanted to go, he shot himself in the ankle. The injury to his ankle was on I believe it was his right ankle, I believe, off the top of my head. And it was done with a .357 Magnum revolver.
Were you able to retrieve the firearm that was used?
I was.
Did Mr. Smith still have the firearm?
He tossed it from his immediate possession, but yes, it wasn't his immediate area.
Was Mr. Smith then transported to the hospital?
He was transported to Piedmont Henry Hospital.
Did Mr. Smith make any statements regarding what happened?
He did not. When officers attempted to ask Mr. Smith about what happened, he stated he either did not know or he didn't want to talk about it.
Did you have on your body cam during this time?
It was activated, yes.
Were you able to determine if any other witnesses who saw Mr. Smith shoot himself in the ankle?
No other witnesses on the scene. Apologies. No other witnesses were able to witness Mr. Smith shooting himself in the ankle. However, one of the residents inside the home did hear a gunshot.
Did Mr. Smith at any time indicate that someone else had shot him?
No, he did not.
Were you able to run Mr. Smith's criminal history?
We did.
What, if anything, were you able to determine?
When we requested dispatch to run Mr. Smith's criminal history, they notified us that he was a convicted felon from a previous charge from some years ago. As of right now, the specific charge is unknown to me at this time.
But at the time, you were able to confirm that Mr. Smith was a convicted felon?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to determine who the firearm belonged to?
Aside from Miss Wyndham stating that he pulled it out of his bag, he never specified that the firearm belonged to him. However, it was in his possession. No one ever specified it was in possession or that it belonged to him, other than it was in his possession.
Just so we're clear, because I think I missed that part. Ms. Wyndham saw Mr. Smith with the handgun?
Yes, he did.
And where did she say he got it from?
He pulled it out of his book bag, which he had brought with him into her vehicle.
Did all of this happen in Clayton County?
It did.
Else Moriarty, and you may have stated this, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. Why did Ms. Wyndham state that Mr. Smith shot himself in the ankle?
She stated that Mr. Wyndham shot himself, or sorry, that Mr. Smith shot himself in the ankle in response to her asking questions, such as where does he want to go? Where does she want him? What does she want to take her? Or things of that nature. And in response, he shot himself in the ankle and then told her, now you have no choice but to take me to the hospital.
Thank you. That's all I have, Judge.
All right, Cross. Attorney Lewis.
Good afternoon, officer.
Good afternoon, sir.
I've got a few questions just as follow-ups. Let's start with Madam Prosecutor, ADA Freeman, said that you were able to confirm that he was a felon.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And how did you do that?
We ran his criminal history.
So you ran his criminal history, or dispatch ran his criminal history?
Dispatch ran his criminal history, sir.
All right. So dispatch told you that he was a felon?
Yes, sir.
Did you write a report contemporaneous to your arrest of this young man?
Yes, sir.
Do you have that report with you?
I have it pulled up.
Okay, beautiful. Officer, how long have you been a law enforcement officer?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. And using your training and experience all the way from when you began in the academy, we know that you're proficient at writing your reports. Is that correct?
For the most part.
Would you please look in your report, officer, and tell us which felony this young man has been convicted of?
It doesn't specify.
It should be there, though, right?
Mistake on my part.
Okay. Do you have in there what jurisdiction he obtained that felony?
I do not.
Do you have in there whether his felony arrest resulted in a felony conviction or a first offender conviction?
It did not specify.
Do you have in there whether if a first offender conviction, it was discharged?
I do not specify in the report.
Understood. Let me go now and turn to the ankle shooting that took place. Which ankle was it?
It says he had a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the right side of his left ankle.
Right side of left ankle. You answered two questions at once. Thank you very much, officer. That's all my questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, the state rests.
All right, closing arguments, Attorney Freeman.
The state waives opening.
All right, Attorney Lewis.
Judge, defense is going to identify two things in this case. First, I'm going to start with some statutory law on his charge of reckless conduct. Judge, the reckless conduct statute requires that he recklessly endanger someone else. It specifically says someone else. It doesn't say himself. And so for this reason, I would ask the court to find no cause on this charge of the reckless conduct or any other charge that exists under Georgia law. With respect to the possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, Judge, you have nothing that tells you in the evidence that has been presented about what felony he committed, whether it was discharged in first offender, whether it was a first offender sentence, what county it was in, what state it was in, or anything else. And so for that reason, I'm going to ask you dismiss that charge as well. Thank you.
All right. Attorney Freeman.
Thank you, Judge. We're asking that both charges are bound over to Superior Court. Regarding the possession by a convicted felon, Judge, we heard Officer Moriarty testify that he had dispatch running criminal history. Based on the information, they were able to confirm that that Mr. Smith was a convicted felon. And I believe at this stage, for probable cause, that is sufficient to bind that charge over to Superior Court. Regarding the reckless conduct, Judge, Mr. Smith, given that he was upset with his so-called friend who was there when she would not do what he wanted her to do or start asking him questions, then he turns and shoots himself in the ankle. And Judge, even though he did not shoot her in the ankle, he shot himself. I believe that with her in her presence, that certainly with him firing a gun, that did present safety concerns for Ms. Winden or anybody else who may have been around. And so again, we believe at this stage that that is sufficient to bind the reckless conduct over as well.
All right, based on the evidence presented, I'm gonna dismiss the reckless conduct and I'm going to bind.
Judge, you sounded muffled. I can't hear you.
Okay, I said, based upon the evidence presented, I am going to bind over the possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. I'm going to dismiss the reckless conduct. That's the order of the court.
Thank you, Judge. And may Officer Moriarty be dismissed?
Yes, thank you, officer.
Thank you, officer.
You have a good day.
You too. And Judge, I think our last hearing is Omar Whitner. And that's with Officer Brown. If you could just give me 1 minute, let me just get that paperwork and I'll be ready. Officer Brown, if you can hear me, you can turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Ms. Freeman, who do we need now?
This is going to be Omar Whitner.
Omar, okay.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the other deputies, they sent him back to the housing unit. I've called the housing unit to send him back to court. Is there anybody else that's having a hearing today?
Your last name?
Give us a second, Deputy. Judge,
Yes?
so the deputy just announced, some deputies sent Mr. Whitner back to his housing unit.
Okay.
How do you want to proceed? And this is our last one. I know Your Honor had made some comments of what time you needed to be done.
Yes, but if they can get him over here in the next 10 minutes, I'll go ahead and proceed.
Deputy, has anyone gone to get him back or?
Yes, yes, Your Honor. Yes, I can get him down here in 10 minutes.
Okay. All right, we'll be on,
Okay.
come back. So we
Okay.
get
All right, Officer Brown, stand by.
Okay.
Okay.
Attorney Lewis.
You need Attorney Lewis?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's see. Attorney Lewis, you still on?
I think he walked away.
Attorney Lewis? Definitely, let me try to call
Okay, thank you.
him. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what are we waiting on? What are we waiting on?
Judge, this is Attorney Lewis. I sent you a message. The jail was trying, they were asking for you.
I know it's not involving Whitner. We're ready.
You ready?
Okay, well, we're waiting. Remember, the jail had to go back
Oh,
and
forget
get
it.
Mr. Whitner.
Okay, all right.
So
Okay.
they don't have him.
No, they don't.
No, some other deputies took him back to his housing unit, so we're waiting for them to go get him from his housing unit.
Your Honor, we're ready to proceed.
All right, you have to.
Come around here.
All right, we're ready.
All right. All right, so, Mr. Whitner, this is your preliminary hearing. I just want to make sure we have 4 charges, correct?
Yes, that's correct. There's 4 charges.
Okay, all right, this is the.
Your Honor, your camera's off.
Oh, okay. Are we on live? Yes, we are. All right, so now calling the matter of State of Georgia versus Omar Whitmore. This is case number 2024 WA 74952, robbery, and 2024 WA 74953, aggravated battery. 2024 WA 74954, possession of a weapon during the commission of a crime. And 2024 WA 74957, public indecency. Representing the state is 88 Freeman. Representing the defendant is Attorney Lewis. Your witness, Attorney Freeman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Brown, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about to provide in the matter of State of Georgia versus Omar Whitner will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
Shakivia Brown, employed with the Clayton County Police Department.
How long have you worked with the Clayton County Police Department?
Almost a year.
Prior to joining the Clayton County Police Department, did you work in any other law enforcement capacity?
No, ma'am.
Were you working with the Clayton County Police Department on April 7th of 2024?
Yes, ma'am.
On that particular day, did you respond to 6726 Terra Boulevard in reference to a robbery?
Yes, ma'am.
What exactly is at that location?
Residents.
When you arrived at this residence, who did you speak to?
The first person I spoke to was the person reporting the incident, which was the victim's sister.
And do you recall her name?
Her name is Susie Saldana.
What did Miss Saldana tell you that happened?
She told me that her mom called her and stated that her brother had just been beat up and robbed. And then she said she came to her mom and her brother's house and she saw his mouth bloody and his clothes kind of torn up. So she called 911.
When Mr. Saldana refers to her brother, is that Michael Santiago?
Yes, ma'am.
Was he at the residence when you got there?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to speak to Mr. Santiago to get his story about what happened?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Were you able to speak to Mr. Santiago about what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
What did Mr. Santiago tell you?
He told me that he was hanging out in the front of the entrance at the incident location with some guys that he knew from around the neighborhood. And he said 4 guys attacked him. They took his wallet with his cards and stuff in it. And they also took his firearm.
While you were speaking to Mr. Santiago, were you able to see any injuries to him?
Yes, he had injuries on his face, some on his body, and his 2 front teeth were missing. And his mouth was bleeding.
Did those injuries come from when he said the 4 people beat him up?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you call for any medical personnel to come?
Yes, ma'am. He was seen by EMS.
Was Mr. Santiago able to give you a description of the individuals who did this to him?
He gave me a description of 2 individuals. The first, he said had 2 ponytails. He was tall, black male. The second was black male, black shirt, black pants, and a low haircut.
Did he know any of the individuals?
He said he didn't know any by name, but he was familiar with their faces from being in the neighborhood.
After Mr. Santiago gave you the description of 2 of the individuals, what did you do?
I called it over the radio. I gave their description over the radio because I had incoming units responding as well.
Were you all able to locate these 2 individuals?
Yes, as those units were coming into the residence, they saw the 2 that matched that description and they were detained at the time.
Was Mr. Whitner one of those individuals detained?
Yes, ma'am.
Did Mr. Whitner or the other individual have any other items that were taken from Mr. Santiago?
No, ma'am.
Were you able to get statements from Mr. Whitner or the other individual?
They just kept saying it wasn't them. They said that they knew him, but that they had not harmed him.
Were you able to speak to any other witnesses or review any video surveillance to show Mr. Whitner?
So we got access to the Fuses cameras from the incident location. We saw Mr. Whitner along with a group of friends at that incident location. However, the actual incident wasn't caught on the camera. We just observed them run away from that location.
Where exactly did the incident take place?
So it's a gas station right in front of the apartment complex, but it happened right at the entrance of the apartment complex. So it caught the group mostly running, not what was happening.
Was Mr. Santiago able to identify Mr. Whitner or the other individual?
Yes, I asked him to give me a description of them again. He gave the same description. My responding officers were able to take a picture of them, and I presented it to Mr. Santiago, and he said those were 2 of the 4 that were involved.
After Mr. Santiago identified Mr. Whitner as one of those individuals, what did you do?
I got statements from him regarding the situation. Then I went to the responding officers. Both were detained, taken into custody at that time.
During the actual robbery, did Mr. Santiago indicate whether or not Mr. Whitner or any of the other individuals had any weapons?
No, ma'am.
One of the charges is possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. If you could tell us the basis for that.
So we searched both offenders for tools, contraband, and weapons for before getting into the patrol vehicle.
Mhm.
We found a firearm on Mr. Whitner. He stated that he always has a firearm on him in public, which confirmed that during the commission of that crime, he had that firearm in his possession.
So at this time, after searching Mr. Whitner, what happened?
We searched him. He was placed in the patrol vehicle of one of the responding officers, and I had the other suspect in my patrol vehicle at that time.
And one of the charges is public indecency. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
If you could tell us the basis for the public indecency.
So I was about to transport to the jail, and we were swapping handcuffs. And that time, I had a friend, which he told me he did have to use the restroom.
You have her repeat that.
Yeah,
You were
go-
breaking up,
go
Officer
ahead,
Brown.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So at that time, I was about to transport him to the jail, but he was in custody in my responding officer's vehicle. So we were going to switch handcuffs. And at that time, he had a free hand. He did tell me he had to use the restroom. And I just advised him, we're going to the precinct shortly. I'll let you use the restroom there. Just give me a minute. However, he proceeded to pull out his penis and pee near the patrol vehicle, which was in front of the officer, and there were some kids on the playground behind him.
And just so we're clear, this was a time when you all had removed the handcuffs that he had on?
Yes, we were swapping handcuffs to put him in the back of my patrol vehicle.
You stated earlier that Mr. Santiago was missing his 2 front teeth.
Yes.
Was he able to find them?
No. We tried to go back and check for them, but they weren't there.
Have you been able to locate the other 2 individuals that were that participated in this?
No, ma'am. Not from my understanding or knowledge.
Did all of this happen in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, Cross.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Officer Brown.
Good afternoon.
Let's go back through a few of your questions that ADA Freeman began with. You said that you had the opportunity to look at a video from a gas station. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You characterized Mr. Whitnow as one of the people running from the location along with his friends. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
How did you come to the conclusion that they were his friends?
They were a group of people hanging around. I didn't confirm exactly who they were to him.
How many people were running from the scene?
It was about maybe 5 or 6.
Okay.
I can't really recall.
That's okay. But it was more than a couple.
Yes.
All right. And you said you spoke with Mr. Santiago upon arriving on the scene. Is that right?
Yes.
Mr. Santiago said that he was standing outside with a few of his friends. Is that right?
Well, he said they weren't his friends. He said he was standing outside with some people he knew from the neighborhood.
Wonderful. Did you have an opportunity to show Mr. Santiago the video?
No, sir.
So you don't know if any of the people from the neighborhood were the people that were running along with Mr. Whitnow?
No, sir.
Does Mr. Whitnow, is he from the neighborhood? Did you determine that in your investigation?
No, sir.
He's not from the neighborhood, or you did not determine it?
I didn't ask him. Mr. Santiago said that's how he recognized who he was because he's seen him in the neighborhood before.
I see. So when Mr. Santiago says that he was standing outside with some of the people from the neighborhood, one of those persons could have been Mr. Whitnow?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then in addition to those people that he was standing out there with, then 4 other people came up on him. Is that correct?
No, they were already standing out there with him.
Ah, okay. So it's not 4 additional people. It's just the people from the neighborhood were all standing out there with Mr. Santiago. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I'm with you now. Okay, so let's go to this gas station video because it sounded really informative. You said the gas station video could see, but it did not see this event happen. Is that right?
It's the gas station video. It's the Fuses camera from the residence that we have access to.
I see. And that Fuse's camera could show you all the people that were around?
Yes.
But it could not show you anybody hitting or accosting Mr. Santiago?
No, sir. It was pointing more towards the entrance of a little bit past the entrance of the apartments.
I got you. All right. Let me ask some other questions, and these came about simply by listening to you. You said when you arrived on scene, Mr. Santiago had a gun, or he didn't have a gun?
No, he didn't have it on him. He said it was taken from him during the altercation.
During the altercation. And none of the people that were arrested had his gun.
No, sir.
And Mr. Santiago did not tell you that Mr. Whitnow used the gun on him during the commission of whatever happened to him.
No, Mr. Whitner said he had it. He always has it in his possession when he's in public.
I remember that part, but I'm going back to the question that Madam Prosecutor asked you about Mr. Santiago. She said that Mr. Santiago say that he had seen anybody with a gun, and I believe your answer was no. Is that right? Or am I mistaken? That's correct?
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right, cool. All right. So let's go to this urination thing. You all were swapping out cuffs, and Mr. Whitnow, who had announced previously that he had to use the restroom,
yes.
and you wanted him to wait until he got to the precinct to use the restroom. Is that right?
Yes, it was about 5 minutes away.
About 5 minutes away. And so as soon as he used the restroom, y'all jumped in the car and went to the precinct. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. But in the meantime, before you jumped in the car, he whipped it out and he urinated. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now I heard you mention this car, and then I heard you mention these children. Lay it out for me, please. Is the car in front of him or behind him?
The car's in front of him. He's in the entrance, in the doorway of the
He's
vehicle.
in the doorway. Does he turn around to face the public, or does he continue to face towards the car?
He's still facing towards the car.
He still faces towards the car. And he's in that door, in that V maybe between the door and the frame?
Yes, sir.
All right, good deal. And where are the children?
The children are behind the officer on the playground.
All right, so they're behind the officer. And where are the children in relationship to the open door?
Behind the officer. So it was the open door, Mr. Whitner, the police officer, Park.
All right,
with children.
got it. Okay. All right, let me look back through my notes here for just a minute, Officer Brown.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. All right. Let's go back to your being summoned to the location where Mr. Santiago is. He is still there upon your arrival, is that correct?
He's in his home at this point.
Is his home not the same location where this occurred?
It is, but it's an apartment, so the entrance, his home is further back from the entrance of the apartment.
I see. So let me say it again a different way, and you tell me if I've got it wrong, right or wrong. There is a set of apartments, and the event is said to have happened at the entrance to the set of apartments, but Mr. Santiago's home is elsewhere in the apartments. Is that correct?
Affirmative.
All right, good, I got it. Okay. Now, is that his daughter that showed up on the scene?
His who, I'm sorry?
His daughter, is that who you spoke with?
No, his sister.
His sister. All right.
Yes.
And his sister said she wasn't there when it went down either, right?
No.
And you didn't see her did you see her on the video?
No.
Okay. And his sister tells you that she was summoned to the scene by someone else. Who was that somebody else?
His mother.
His mother. And did you get a chance to talk to mom?
Yes.
Okay. What did mom say she saw?
She said she was in the house and her son came in with missing teeth, bloody mouth, and bruises, saying that someone or some people just robbed him and beat him up and took his things.
And mom is in the home where Mr. Santiago lives, or is she in one of the apartments closer to the entrance?
No, she's at home.
They
live together.
Oh, they live together. All right, I got it. So she doesn't witness or hear anything.
No, sir.
All right. It's just a curiosity. When you talk with Mr. Santiago, did he say that these people beat anybody else up or just him?
Just him.
Did he give you a reason as to why they picked on little old him?
He's actually not a little guy, but he said he didn't know. He thought they were cool because he had seen them a few times and spoken to them. So he didn't exactly know why.
Okay. Just they singled him out, a rather big guy with a gun.
Well, his gun was concealed, so I'm not sure they actually knew he had it on him.
Okay, but they knew he was a big guy?
Mm-hmm.
How big is he?
I would say a little over 6 feet, maybe 220.
Okay. All right. Cool. Officer, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
No problem.
All righty, any redirect
No, Your Honor, the state rests.
and closing arguments? Attorney Freeman.
State waives opening.
All right. Go ahead, Attorney Lewis.
All right, thank you, Judge. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit, Judge. The defendant's position is controlled by 2 officers, a minimum of 2 officers. One that had cuffs on the defendant and another that was trying to get cuffs onto the defendant. He announces to those that have control that he has to use the restroom. They tell him to wait, and he does not urinate in his clothes. He does not urinate in the car. He doesn't know, I'm sure, how long it takes them to get to where they're going to take him. But instead, he is concealed behind a door, a car, and another male officer while he urinates. I would submit to you, Judge, that he's not in the public at all. He's done a pretty good job of concealing himself away, given the limited movement control that he has over his movement. He has no control over his movement. And we know this because Officer Brown told us that. We're told that he is charged with possession of a weapon during the commission of a crime. But the reality is, Judge, we actually don't know that. We don't know, and no one has testified to you that he has possessed a weapon during the commission of a crime. In fact, Mr. Santiago does not say that he's possessed a weapon. And a question has been asked of Officer Brown, did he have it? And the answer came back is no. It is in Officer Brown's search or her colleagues' search of him that they discover a weapon. But the reality is, we don't know if he had a weapon during. What we know is that it wasn't anything that he possessed as a weapon was not used. And we know this from Mr. Santiago. So we don't have to speculate on what could have, would have, should have been. Judge, there's a claim of robbery by force here. And I didn't go back and ask any questions on this because frankly, I didn't know what to ask. There's allegedly a wallet and a firearm taken from Mr. Santiago. And I say allegedly, Judge, because I heard the officer's characterization of Mr. Santiago. He's a big guy. Mama, who's in the apartments, don't hear nothing about no screaming. He's missing some teeth, but nobody's testified as to the presence of blood anywhere other than in his mouth. The prosecutor asked about the teeth themselves. And I can't help but surmise that there's a little bit more going on the outside of these apartments rather than him just, Mr. Santiago that is, sitting around chatting with some friends. And so I don't know if a robbery has occurred, Judge, or if it has occurred by force, but of course you're gonna do what is necessary given the minimum standards that are required at this preliminary hearing. But I would ask you to take all of that into account with a grain of salt, because what we do know absolutely from Mr. Santiago is that Mr. Wittenauer did not use a gun on him. And there's no testimony that Mr. Wittenauer has punched anybody's teeth out. In fact, Mr. Santiago says he's hanging around with a bunch of friends out on the front, people from the neighborhood, didn't think that they were going to do anything. And we don't know if anybody acted in concert with one another. If they did, then Mr. Santiago is one of the people that they acted in concert with. What we know is that he has a bloody mouth. He is missing 2 teeth that nobody knows when those teeth came out, if they came out that day or if they came out by way of force. We know that Mr. Wittenauer possessed no gun that Mr. Santiago saw, although later on, upon the law enforcement search of him, they find a gun. We know that everybody, 4 or 5 folks ran. We know that there is no video, even from the home, of anything having been witnessed, although we can see the 5 people, purportedly 5 or so people at the home. So I'm going to ask the court to do this. I'm going to ask the court, since nothing has been alleged by way of force from Mr. Wittenauer against Mr. Santiago, that the battery all battery related charges, you find no cause on to forward them. The robbery by force, Mr. Santiago says that Mr. Whitney was present. I was submit that on the testimony that we received from this officer. The possession of a weapon during the commission of a crime, I would ask the court to find no cause on to forward this over into this inset charge. And the indecent exposure, I would ask the court to find no cause on based upon the testimony that we've received from the officer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Judge, we're asking that all of the charges are bound over to Superior Court. Let me start with the public indecency, where the statute says performing a lewd appearance in a state of partial or complete nudity in a public place. Urinating on the ground in a public parking lot made a lewd appearance. And that's Clark v. State 169 Georgia Appeals. Regardless if he was standing in the doorway or he wasn't standing in the doorway of the car, he pulled out his penis and urinated right there when Officer Brown told him, "Give us a minute, we're taking you to the headquarters," but he didn't do that. So that is public indecency. Judge, we have the testimony from our victim. He positively identified Mr. Whitner. He stated about 4 people jumped on him, they beat him up, they took his property. He had a bloody mouth, his teeth were knocked out, and he had other visible injuries that Officer Brown testified to. That certainly is sufficient for a robbery by force, as well as the aggravated battery. When the officers were searching Mr. Whitner, they found a firearm on his person. He stated that he always has it on him. And so we were surmised that the possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime, he had the firearm on him. If it was alleged that he had used the firearm, then the charge would have been armed robbery. And there's never been an allegation that he used the firearm, or even that he brandished it, the robbery by force. So we're asking at this time that you bind all charges over to Superior Court.
All right, so based upon the evidence presented, I do not find sufficient probable cause on the public indecency. I don't think there was an intent to be publicly indecent. I think that he had an emergency situation that he likely could not hold any longer. So I'm going to dismiss that case, but all other charges will be bound over to the Superior Court of Clayton County. That's the order of the court.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
And may Officer Brown be excused?
Yes, Officer Brown. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Judge, that concludes my business. May I be excused?
Yeah, and one last thing. So let's make sure, first of all, that we have everything. So Attorney Lewis, make sure, Attorney Lewis, that if you have inmates, if your client is unable to speak English, that you arrange prior to court to get the Spanish interpreter. Okay?
That's actually not my responsibility, Judge, but I believe that the public defender's office is doing that.
We did that, Your Honor, and it was approved for this morning.
Okay, she was. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we knew who understood whose responsibility it is to get the court appointed. The interpreters. Okay.
Okay, but it's not mine.
It's not yours. Okay.
That's correct. All right, now back to where I was before. May I be excused?
Hold on, let me go through.
Attorney Lewis.
Got everybody from you.
Step over there, please. Attorney
Deputies,
Lewis.
you can send them back.
Okay. Attorney Lewis, can you go out to a breakout room with me, please?
I have another engagement right now. Is it an emergency?
No, it's not an emergency.
Go ahead, Judge.
You're gonna go in the breakout room with her?
No, she said it's not an emergency.
Oh, okay. All righty. Well, have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Are we done, Judge?
Yes, I believe we're done.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.